You're in a room full of people. No one has spoken yet, but your mind has already decided who you trust, who you avoid, who seems familiar, and who seems dangerous. All of this happened before a single word was spoken, and you didn't even realize it. If any part of this feels familiar to you, you're not alone. And if you ever feel like sharing your experience, the comments are open. Your mind doesn't wait for permission to judge. It observes, categorizes, and files away information about every person who crosses its path, silently, automatically. And you only discover this later, when you realize you've already formed an opinion about someone without knowing exactly why. This is not a flaw. This is design, and it happens to all of us, every day, without exception. You form an opinion about someone in the first 3 seconds without realizing it. You meet someone for the first time. There was no time for conversation, for context, for anything, but something inside you has already decided, this person seems trustworthy, or something's wrong here. You didn't think about it. Your mind simply delivered the conclusion, and you accepted it. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was an invisible process running in the background, analyzing micro-expressions, tone of voice, posture, physical distance. Your mind pieced together imperceptible fragments and assembled a complete story before you even blinked twice. And now you act based on that story, as if it were real. The strangest thing is that you rarely question that first impression. It settles in as truth, and when someone tries to convince you otherwise, you resist, because your mind already knows, or thinks it knows. And ultimately, you trust that 3-second feeling more than any logical argument that comes afterward. Your mind automatically compares you to every person you meet. You're in a casual conversation. The person is talking about something simple, maybe their job, or a hobby, and while you listen, your mind is doing something else. It's measuring, comparing. Am I better at this? She seems more confident than me. He has something I don't have. You didn't ask for this comparison. It just happens. Like a program running on its own, your mind places you and the other person side by side, and starts looking for differences. Who is closer than they should be? Who is further away? Who is winning? And that changes everything. It changes how you listen. It changes how you respond. It even changes how you feel about yourself after the conversation. Because every interaction silently becomes a mirror, and you never know if you're going to like the reflection. The strangest thing is that the other person has no idea about this. They are simply existing, but in your mind, they have become a yardstick, and you are measuring yourself against them, whether you want to or not. You categorize people as safe or threats before you even think about it. You enter a new environment, perhaps a meeting, an event, a shared space, and before you can process any rational information, your mind has already separated people into 2 invisible groups, those who seem safe and those who don't. There was no conscious analysis. There was no reasoning. Your mind simply sensed something and made a decision. This person is safe. That other one, better keep your distance. And you act accordingly, without realizing it. Your body leans towards some. It moves away from others. All of this happens below the line of consciousness. The problem is that this categorization isn't neutral. It carries old memories, vague associations, past experiences you don't even remember anymore. Someone has a tone of voice similar to someone who hurt you. Another person has a posture that reminds you of someone who comforted you. And your mind uses that as proof. You're not judging the real person. You're judging the ghost they awaken within you. And you rarely notice the difference. You mentally review conversations and discover signs you didn't see before. The conversation ended hours ago, but your mind hasn't stopped. It's replaying every sentence, every pause, every glance, and suddenly you realize something. Wait, that silence meant something. The way she looked away, was she lying? Now it seems obvious, but at the time, you didn't see anything. Your mind has this silent habit of re-editing the past. It takes moments that seemed neutral and transforms them into evidence. A smile that lasted half a second less, a word chosen too carefully, and suddenly, the whole conversation takes on a new meaning. You begin to doubt what you heard, or worse, to be certain of something that was never said. The most disturbing thing is that this mental review feels like a revelation. It feels like you've finally seen the truth. But maybe you're just creating a more interesting story than reality was. Maybe that silence meant nothing. Maybe you're seeing signs where there was only exhaustion. And yet, you keep this new version of the conversation, and the next time you meet this person, you'll act based on what you discovered, not on what actually happened. Your mind seeks confirmation for what it has already decided about someone. You've formed an opinion about someone. It may have been quick. It may have been based on almost nothing. But now, it's there, and your mind starts working, not to test whether that opinion is right, but to prove that it is. Each new interaction becomes a search for evidence. If you've decided someone is arrogant, you'll notice every moment that person seems overconfident. You'll ignore the moments when they were humble. Your mind filters out what doesn't fit and highlights what confirms it. And little by little, your initial opinion solidifies, not because it was true, but because you nurtured it. The most dangerous thing is that this happens on both sides. If you like someone, you'll justify their flaws. She's not controlling, she just cares. If you don't like them, you'll condemn their qualities. He's not kind, he just wants something. Your mind isn't seeking the truth, it's seeking internal consistency. And the more time passes, the harder it becomes to change your mind, because now you have a whole collection of evidence, and it all points to the same conclusion, the one you had already decided on. At the beginning, you judge by voice, posture, and silences, not just by words. Someone is telling you something important. The words are clear, the message is direct, but you're not just hearing that. You're hearing the tone, the speed, the pauses between sentences, and that's where your mind makes the real decision. This person is nervous. They're hiding something. They don't believe what they're saying. Words can lie, but your mind trusts the body more. The way someone holds your shoulders, the way their eyes move before answering, the seconds of silence that last too long. You process all of this without realizing it, and in the end, what remains is not what was said, it's how it was said. And the strangest thing is that you can rarely explain why you didn't trust someone. I just didn't feel confident. Something was wrong. You have no proof, but your mind has already decided, and it used signs you didn't even know you were picking up on. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you read tension where there was only shyness, but your mind doesn't differentiate, it just interprets, and you act based on that interpretation, as if it were fact. You create entire stories about strangers based on a single gesture. You're in a cafe, someone you've never seen before is sitting alone, looking out the window, and without thinking, your mind has already started. That person is sad, they just ended a relationship, or maybe they're waiting for someone who's not going to show up. You've constructed a whole narrative, based on nothing but an expression, and a silence. It wasn't intentional. Your mind automatically fills in the gaps. It can't stand incomplete information, so it invents. It takes a fragment, and transforms it into a plot. And the less you know about someone, the more elaborate the story becomes, because there are no facts to limit the imagination. The curious thing is that these stories affect how you feel about the person. You created a past for them, a motivation, a pain, and now you look at them with empathy, or with distrust, or with curiosity, all because of something you invented, and which is probably completely wrong. But your mind doesn't care about precision. It wants meaning, and if it doesn't find it, it creates it, and you go through a world surrounded by characters that only exist in your head. Your mind holds details about people you don't even remember noticing. Weeks after meeting someone, you're thinking about that person, and suddenly, a memory surfaces. The specific way they smiled when you said something, the exact tone of their voice when they brought up a sensitive topic, the way their fingers drummed on the table for 2 seconds. You didn't even know you'd noticed it, but your mind recorded it. She files away information without telling you, tiny details that seemed irrelevant at the time, and then, when you least expect it, those details resurface, and suddenly, they mean something. They connect with other observations, and they form an impression you can't explain. There's something about this person. I don't fully trust them, but you don't know why. The strangest thing is that these details aren't always real. Your mind can distort a memory, amplify a gesture, transform a neutral look into something charged, and you have no way to verify it. So you trust, and you act based on memories that may just be interpretations. Your mind doesn't register the truth. It registers what you felt, and that changes everything. Because you're not remembering the person, you're remembering how they made you feel, and that's never neutral. You change your opinion about someone, but pretend you always thought that way. You were certain about someone, absolutely certain. That person is trustworthy, or the opposite. And then something happens. A conversation, an unexpected behavior, and suddenly, your opinion changes completely. Now you see the person in a totally different way. And the most curious thing is that your mind rewrites the past to fit this new version. You start remembering signs that were always there. I always knew something was wrong. From the beginning, I felt it. But it's not true. You didn't feel it. You're reconstructing your memories so that everything makes sense now. Your mind hates contradiction, so it adjusts the story, and you believe this new version as if it had always been real. The problem is that this prevents you from learning, because you never admit you were wrong. You just convince yourself that you always knew, and that creates a dangerous illusion. The illusion that you're good at reading people, when in reality, you're only good at rewriting the past. And the next time you form a quick opinion about someone, you'll trust it with the same certainty, because your mind has erased all the times you were wrong before. You judge less what a person does, and more how they make you feel. Someone can do everything right, say the right words, act the way you expect, but if that person makes you feel small, insecure, or uncomfortable, your mind has already decided. It doesn't matter what they did. What matters is how you felt around them, and that defines everything. You don't judge people objectively. You judge them emotionally. Someone might help you, but if they made you feel inferior in the process, you'll hold a grudge. Another person might disappoint you, but if they made you feel seen, you'll forgive. Your mind doesn't register actions. It registers emotional states, and it's these states that shape your opinions. The most revealing thing is realizing that two people can do exactly the same thing, and you will react in opposite ways, because it's not about the act itself. It's about what the act awakens in you, your insecurities, your memories, your unspoken needs. The other person becomes a mirror of what you feel about yourself, and in the end, you're not judging who she is. You're judging who you become when you're around her, and that says more about you than about anyone else. Your mind never stops observing. It categorizes, compares, files, and rewrites. It judges silently, even before you realize you're doing it, and you carry these impressions as if they were absolute truths, when most of the time they are just reflections of what you feel. This doesn't make you superficial. It doesn't make you unfair. It makes you human, because everyone does it. We all silently judge. We all build stories about people we barely know. We all trust feelings we can't explain. The difference lies in perception, in noticing when your mind is filling in gaps, when it's seeking confirmation, when it's rewriting the past to make sense of the present. Because when you perceive this, you gain a choice. You can question the first impression. You can revise the story you invented. You can separate what the person did from how they made you feel. And perhaps, in the end, you'll discover that you were never judging others. You were simply trying to understand yourself through them. If you made it this far, consider subscribing. There's more to explore, and it's all waiting quietly, just like this.